The stinging blows and resounding snap of the leather belt against my young flesh was an unforgettable sensation. Many a time my father doled out his fury and disappointment with his own life against me. He was a hair-triggered man, and as if the beatings weren't bad enough, he would lock me in the closet for a time afterwards. I don't know how much time I spent there, in the dark, but at the end of the day, I was thankful because just being alive was all that mattered at the time. Had it not been for him, I may never have become strong. I might have been deafened to the whispers, never made the deal with the demon in the crack of the closet. It asked me how I felt about my drunkard of a father, asked if I liked feeling weak and small and insignificant in the world. It visited me often until finally one day, it asked if I wanted to make a deal, a trade in fact, in exchange to become strong. I accepted without hesitation because what is the use of a soul if one has to spend their life weak and suffering? Its feminine face smiled down at me and finally gave me its name and title. Gemery, the lover of women. That's what it called itself, and it's been with me every moment from that day on. Whispering. Everything started out small and simple enough. My first task was a simple one, to kill the stray cat that everyone saw daily roaming the neighborhood. It was easier than I had expected with that first bit of strength initially bestowed to me. I lured that unsuspecting yellow-haired Mancoon straight up into my lap using a can of tuna before I drove my thumbs into its eyes, blinding it so it couldn't get away before my work was done. It hissed and yowled louder at the pain than I had ever thought would be possible before I managed to pin the frantic feline down and crush its neck with one of my heavy, worn, secondhand boots. Unsurprisingly, my father found out immediately, having been irritated by all the noise. He stood at the back door, judging me silently for a few seconds before he called me into the house. I was confronted immediately in the living room, with him shouting and putting his hands annoyingly close to my face. I grew irritated and Gemery knew just how to edge me on, convincing me to push the drunkard away, which caused his foot to clip the end of the thick rug and send him crashing headfirst into the edge of the sharply pointed table. The sound of the impact is unforgettable. It was a visceral, wet, cracking sound. He died instantly, and I took satisfaction in his death, claiming him as my first true sacrifice to the demon Gemery. Everything since then has been easy. My next sacrifice came just a few weeks later, when I strangled a toddler whose mother had left for just a few moments to use the nearby bathroom. I lured her inside of the plastic palace at the playground with the offering of sharing my candy, then strangled her in the shadows, reaching into her throat after the fact and leaving a hard candy behind, wondering if anyone would believe she had simply found the sweets and choked while unattended. Not long after that, I followed up by kicking a bully that had reminded me of my deceased father down the steep stairs of the orphanage where I'd stayed for a while. That act wasn't done as a suggestion of Gemery, but simply because I hated that boy and wanted to see him at the least in pain. He broke his fragile preteen neck, however, causing him to be paralyzed, but still alive for just a few moments until Gemery decided to have me claim his pathetic soul. With every sacrifice, I could feel myself grow a bit more powerful. The feeling was addictive and fueled my desire to kill further, strengthening my bond and loyalty to my ever-present demon companion. Over time, I was taught how to spot weaker possessed individuals and to cloak myself with a simple spell while I hunted them. It's the only time I truly feel much of anything at all these days. Killing is just so thrilling to me. I also have an appreciation for the magic of binding my prey before we drain them of their power and Gemery steals their soul. Although I wish to do nothing more than hunt constantly. In my day-to-day life, I've assumed the role of a typical day trader, to keep myself decently fed, homed, and clothed. 24 years have passed since the deal in the closet, and it's been about a week since my last sacrifice. The urge to kill is now overwhelming. All I can think about is watching the life drain from my next sacrifice's eyes. I wish to gut them and run my hands through the mess of their warm entrails, to revel in the viscera and carnage, the terror in their eyes and pain that sends a lightning bolt through my veins that makes all of the efforts worthwhile time and time again. Throwing on my usual fully black gear, I shove my sacrificial dagger into the large front pocket of my hoodie and head to the door. I've begun exclusively hunting females for the last decade, as I've discovered that the depth of Jemery's interests in all things female has certainly become a part of me as well, so I find their expressions are the most satisfying to me. Exiting my home, I take a stroll downtown near the city's bus transfer station. It's one of the best locations to begin a hunt, since not too far from there lies several abandoned areas, ranging from small branching alleyways to whole vacated warehouses, empty trailers. I round the corner and almost immediately spot my mark, an attractive, light-skinned young lady who's just stepping off of the bus that only travels between here and the state's most prestigious college. She sports yoga-like attire, black but with bright neon stripes, and her hair consists of two slightly messy cornrows that lay against her collarbones. Around her neck is a student ID, and on her back is a medium-sized bag shaped like a cat's head. She will be perfect right before the taking. I nod in agreement as I watch her pop her earbuds and scroll through music on her cell phone before she walks off in a direction I know to be generally uninhabited. I stalk her casually from a distance, cloaking my presence and employing all the skills I've picked up over the many years. It's only when she finally pauses next to an old empty warehouse to check her phone that I quietly begin to sprint up behind her, my Damascus steel dagger held firmly in hand. Let us dine on her blood tonight. Ready to slice her open, I'm caught off guard when my eyes meet hers in the reflection of the darkened cell phone screen. Before my blade can meet her flesh, I see the casual rise of her free hand, and with the flick of her wrist, I feel my body jerk violently backwards as I'm sent crashing into a solid metal beam before slumping to the ground. I just barely hear the binding spell being broken before my body stiffens up and locks into place. I realize now that I've made a grave error, as in my bloodlust I've seriously underestimated the target, and I'm currently unable to defend myself. All I can do is stare up at her from the dirty warehouse floor in bewilderment as she begins to speak and gloat joyfully. "Pleased to meet you," she giggles cheerfully. The name on her student ID reads Marshall. "Satan willing, I do so love to catch you mid-tier sorcerers." Grinning widely, she holds a hazelwood wand and wears a polished silver ring on her middle finger of her left hand. She dances around in a pattern with an unnatural rhythm to the sound of music only she can hear. My eyes widen slowly as she begins praising her obviously thoroughly gorged high-tier demon, the surest of signs that she is absolutely intent on taking my life tonight. "Byleth, accept this humble sacrifice from your loyal servant. Your constant whispers fill me with wicked strength and dark magics. Praise be to you, King of the 85 legions of hell. Ride your pale horses with pride and drag this praised soul to the depths of hell," she yells proudly. She approaches me, giving me just enough time so that I can discern the bits of dried blood and the discoloration of the stained wood. Extending from the center of the wand's wood is a thick, sturdy-looking metal spike that thins into a lethal several-inch-long point, making the wand appear much more like a spear instead. Fear begins to rattle within me, starting at my very core, as the tip is slowly shoved into my chest. Marshall stares deeply into my eyes with an intense, wide-eyed and unblinking, mannequin-like expression. All I can do is groan as the point slowly sinks into my yielding flesh. She quickly hits the wall of bone protecting my heart, and without even breaking her gaze, she uses her free hand to tap on the end of the wand, piercing through my bones effortlessly. I can feel it as the tip rests directly against my furiously beating heart. and tears roll down my cheeks in terror I hadn't experienced since my childhood. She viciously carves an ironic cross or X-like shape over my center heart, just for her added amusement, to watch my eyes dilate even further as my heart lurched nauseatingly from the unsettling pain. I yet again feel like a weak, helpless child. And with that, she plunges suddenly into my core, forcing a gasp from my dried lips as I feel my frantic heart attempting to regain its now impossible rhythm. My strength is now divided immediately between Marshall and Byleth, as I struggle in vain just to try to stay conscious. My body goes limp and my chest heaves up and down at the effort of continuing to breathe as Byleth has nearly reached my soul. Gemery lashes out, yanking my soul away from Byleth's clutches. My functions come to an end. I feel my soul being dragged down into my own portion of that special infernal abyss that's been waiting for me all this time. Better the enemy you know than the ones you don't. Because when you hear a demon's whisper, it will never leave you.